My folded binding here has been cut really precisely, and I use a see-through ruler and a rotary cutter to trim it. And this one is about 1.25 inches, maybe somewhere between 1 inch and 1.25 inches when folded in half, yes. And then I'm going to stitch my little seam. And I will press this seam open. I'm evening things up here a little bit. I want it to be really nice and even. This little piece of, it's more like a mesh. It's got a lot of give. So I'm going to come back to the machine, and back in the days of stretch and sew, which was a wonderful phenomenon, got America Sewing, they used to talk about divide and conquer. So that's what I'm doing here, is I'm marking quarters on my little band, which I'm now then going to line up with my t-shirt, which I've marked quarters. And it's really important to notice that the shoulder seam is not the quarter marking. Okay, so now I'm going to start with my little seam at the center back, and I'm going to put right sides together, and I'm going to pin this. Get it so it's easier to handle. I'm going to pin it with the band on top. That is really important. This is kind of one of those basic rules of sewing. You always sew with the smallest side on top. Match all these up. This is a little delicate, you know. This little thin piece of lace. I can get rid of that pin. Not lace, but net. And we can really see it's quite a bit smaller. But my intuition tells me it's going to stretch out and it'll be fine. The thing you also, see, look at this relationship. Now, this is what my years of experience have taught me, is that this looks like a good relationship. This is smaller, but not dramatically smaller. There's another really, really basic thing you have to remember, and that is that this neckband has to be able to go on over your head. I'll go with a 3/8 inch seam rather than a wider one. So I like to start my stitching somewhere on the back. Yeah, this looks just about right. And on a neck edge like this, it's a whole lot easier to handle a narrow seam than a wider. Even a 5/8 inch seam is a little more dicey to handle. The key here is that I just work with a little segment at a time. So you can see how my next pin is a few inches away, but this is where I do putts, and I'm really careful because I don't want to get a little pleat in there. And coming around the neck curve, that's where it's a little dicey. This would be a good place if you've got that needle down position. Put it in the needle down position, because then it kind of holds it as you are working. So here that can come out. And it's really important just to work little sections at a time. You don't have to get the whole thing all at one time. Now I'm coming around the front, which of course, you know, I want the front to be looking really good. And this is where I'm glad I've done my stay stitching. Even though I trimmed my neck down, I've still got a little bit of stay stitching in there that's going to keep the neck edge from stretching out. Because if you don't do the stay stitching, what happens is when you sew around the neck edge, on one half of the neck, you're going with the grain. On the other half, you're going against the grain. And what can happen is that the neck can distort and stretch. I've got some seaming in there, so I'm going to smooth that out before I come to it. So you want to keep this stitching as smooth and even as you can. And the free arm really helps. The needle down really helps.